In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Wow, that was a long gospel. I think it took almost 2 full pages to read that. Well, first of all, I want to point out to you I'm wearing my love shoes. Some friends gave them to me, and they said, wear them whenever you preach. So today I'm wearing my love shoes. Anyway, it was a really long gospel. Why did John devote so much time and attention to it? What's happening in this gospel? Jesus talks to a Samaritan woman at a well. Wow. A woman. A Samaritan. And someone who has had 5 husbands. The disciples, when they came back, were wondering, has he lost his mind? The Samaritan in that culture was an outsider. Someone who is unclean. On the fringe of society, someone who does not belong. Or at least someone who is ignored by society. And that Samaritan was a woman. Jewish men of that time did not talk to women or interact with them. But Jesus sees her. Remember when we talked about Salbona and seeing someone? Jesus sees her. He has seen her plight. He has recognized her, spoken with her, and even taken a drink from her. He has seen her. She exists for him, has worth, value, and significance. Then what does Jesus do? He doesn't start lecturing her or judging her. He asks her for help. He asks her for a drink of water. She looks at him like he's crazy. What is he doing, a Jew, asking a Samaritan and a woman for help and a drink of water, which is an intimacy that is unheard of. Maybe she's thinking that he lost his mind. Here is Jesus, once again, breaking all the rules. Throughout the gospel, Jesus repeatedly breaks the rules. And what has the Christian church preached in the past about the Samaritan woman? I would suggest that we've taken the safe route. The church often has preached that the Samaritan woman sees Jesus and Jesus offers her eternal life, and that she goes and tells others the good news. And that is what the gospel passage says. But it says more than that to me. The Samaritan woman is recognized. She is listened to. She goes and testifies. We'll talk more about that later. But that is the traditional safe route to talk about the salvation that Jesus brings us. In Bishop Sutton's words, we have preached a reluctant Jesus, and not the powerful political person he was. He didn't sign up with any partisan group of his days, but he did challenge the religious and political figures of his time with words from the Hebrew prophets and with his own actions. What the church has been afraid to say is that Jesus is breaking the rules because he is bringing a new message, a new order, a new life to each one of us, where each one of us is loved. Each one of us is a child of God, and where each one of us deserves equal dignity and respect. And Jesus calls us to do the same. He calls us to love our neighbors as ourselves. There's the love thing again. That's our call. That's our mission. Jesus calls us to go into the community, as does the Samaritan woman, and tell the people, or show the people, that they are loved by God regardless of who they are or what religion they are. We are to be agents of change and justice in God's name. We are called to be fearless tellers of Jesus' message and story. But what is happening here in the world and our country today? We find ourselves in anxious times. This world seems to be in political and moral chaos. It's a time of alternative facts, of fake news. Are we living in a disorienting post-truth era, one where there are routine lies and intentional deceptions, and a government policy of excluding people from our country? Based on what? What they have done? No. Based simply on their country of origin, their religion, and the unspoken result is based on their skin color. These policies are dehumanizing and objectifying. This is exactly what happened to the Jews in World War II. Hitler started talking about the Jews as being less than human in 1932, and by 1939, many believed him and allowed the government to brutally beat the Jews, imprison them, and treat them worse than dogs. Certainly, they didn't treat them as human beings, and I suspect that many of these people called themselves Christians. Just as I suspect that many of the people today who want to exclude those Muslims call themselves Christians too. Let's make Muslims less than human. Make us think that they are our enemy. Our leaders want us to believe that we are in a war with Muslims because the Judeo-Christian West is supposedly being invaded and that Muslims are the enemy. We are seeking to exclude people based on their religious beliefs rather than to address the national security threats or intended procedural improvements that we might have to make. We see a rise in violent hate crimes. I have friends who are Jewish who have been telling me about the synagogues that have been defaced and set on fire. And I said, why? I'm not reading about this in the paper. So I started getting emails from various Jewish organizations, and these things are happening all the time, but they aren't being reported. And some say, oh, no, that's not it. It's that they may be terrorists. What? Since 9/11, the CIA and the FBI have been infiltrating all sorts of groups of would-be terrorists. And there are no indications at all that they are not doing their jobs. Why isn't that enough? Besides, a mere investigation is not evidence of wrongdoing. Our Constitution requires that we are presumed innocent until proven guilty. We, as Christians, are called to be doers, to be Christ's body on the earth, in the words of St. Teresa of Avila. We are reminded of Jesus' own words in the Sermon on the Mount. In Matthew 5, Jesus turns conventional thinking on its head. The blessed of God are the poor, the meek, the mourners, the merciful, the persecuted, those who hunger and thirst for righteousness are blessed. In Matthew 25, verses 31 through 40, we hear Jesus identifying most with the least among us. The hungry and thirsty, the stranger, the naked, the sick, and the prisoners. We are called to be followers who believe and act as if we believe in what Jesus said on the Sermon on the Mount. The call to protect and raise up the poor, the needy, the disenfranchised, the homeless, the hungry, and those without medical care, and the unemployed. Jesus does not want us to be in the shadows, afraid to speak out. Jesus and the Samaritan woman show us the way. Now, these positions are not rooted in talking points from the Democratic Party or position papers from liberal think tanks. They are rooted in Jesus' own words. They are also rooted in Genesis. The creation is a gift of God to all of humanity. We are all part of that creation. We are called to give this gift of creation to all of humanity. We must not allow any people to be excluded. As Christ's body on earth, we are commanded to live out Jesus' words. In the words of San Diego Catholic Bishop Michael, we must all become disruptors. We must disrupt those who would seek to send troops into our streets to deport the undocumented, to rip our mothers and fathers from their families. We must disrupt those who portray refugees as enemies rather than our brothers and sisters in terrible need. We must disrupt those who train us to see Muslim men, women, and children as forces of fear rather than as children of God. We must disrupt those who seek to rob our medical care, especially from the poor. We must disrupt those who would take even food stamps and nutritional assistance from the mouths of children. And the bishop goes on to say, but we, as people of faith, are disciples of Jesus Christ, as children of Abraham, as followers of the Prophet Muhammad, of people of all faiths and no faith. We cannot merely be disruptors. We also have to be rebuilders. We have to rebuild this nation so that we place at its heart the service to the dignity of each human person, and assert that the flag, the American flag, what the American flag asserts is our heritage, that every man, woman, and child is equal in this nation and called to be equal. We must rebuild a nation in solidarity, what Catholic teaching calls the sense that all of us are the child of the one God. There are no children of a lesser God in our midst. I would echo what the bishop said and say that if we seek to exclude people based on their religious beliefs rather than address national security threats, that is a shameful betrayal of what our country stands for and what Jesus stands for. As followers of Christ, we are reminded of our baptismal covenant, where we repeatedly promise to proclaim by word and example the good news of God in Christ, to seek and serve God in all persons, loving our neighbor as ourselves, to strive for justice and peace among all people, and respect the dignity of every human being. We know that these are difficult promises to keep, and that is precisely why in our baptismal covenant we say we will with God's help. We ask God's help to do that. As we proceed in our daily lives, we can be reminded of the example of the Samaritan woman. She saw, believed, and acted. As we navigate this new political climate, we must be reminded of the values of the Christian gospel. In the words of St. Paul's letter to the Galatians, love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, generosity, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. These are what characterize followers of Jesus. As Bishop Sutton said, the politics of Jesus, no matter what social or economic policies are being espoused or denounced, demand that these values undergird the tone of the political conversation and its proposed outcomes. I invite you to follow the example of the Samaritan woman and engage the community as followers of Jesus and share his ministry of reconciliation and love. Let us follow that with the example of the Samaritan woman and those of many in our congregation, and go to our neighbors and let them know and show them that they are children of God and are loved. Amen.